Hello everybody and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're discussing a resort that has completely transformed itself over the past couple years, Steamboat. Steamboat is a large mountain, so this Insider's Guide is split into 4 parts. This part discusses the ever-popular Sunshine area of the mountain, with the other parts covering the rest. If you haven't already, go check out part A to get some background and learn about the lower part of the mountain. So with that, let's continue in Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Steamboat. First and foremost, the Wild Blue Gondola closes for downloading at both the top and mid station at 3:45, and the Steamboat Gondola closes for downloading at 4:30. If you're feeling tired and you're high on the mountain, don't risk your health pushing it to get one more unnecessary run dropping several thousand feet of vert. Just ride one of the gondolas down. You'll see signs all over the place saying exactly this, and there's a reason. People get hurt at the end of the day because they were more tired than they thought, then got 2/3 of the way down the mountain and realized they were in over their head. Now let's discuss the Sunshine area. The Sunshine Pod is the most popular pod in the resort. It has some of the greatest groomers, the only main mountain green that isn't a road, easier blues, and, as its name implies, lots of sunshine. Of course, this means its runs and lift are busier than that of other pods. As far as the lift goes, it's most likely going to be replaced with a 6-pack within the coming years, and eventually it'll be augmented by another high-speed quad over on the Boundary. However, that's for a different video. For right now, the best alternative when Sunshine is busy is to ride up the slow South Peak triple and head over to Sundown, which also gets lines, but typically not as long of lines as Sunshine. This entire side of the mountain, including Sundown, Elkhead, Sunshine, and South Peak, doesn't open until 9, so if you're up the gondola at 8:30, you'll need to kill some time on the Storm Peak side before you can come over to this area. Recall from Part A that Wild Blue, which drops you off at Sunshine Peak, doesn't open until 9, also conforming to this principle. Now, off the top, the furthest skier's left option, the furthest looker's right on this map, is Sundial. Sundial is more of a road in some parts and more of a traditional green in some parts. It does offer lots of gates to Morningside, so beware of higher level skiers mixing in with beginners. In the trees on the skier's right, which are very much experts only, there are some excellent pillows. The same can be said lower down on the skier's left in the Black Powder Glade. The more popular option to get down this initial pitch is Tomahawk Face, which is a much steeper groomer. Sundial and Tomahawk Face converge at this big intersection here. Kit, which honestly doesn't serve a huge purpose, is a little path through the trees that goes from Quick Draw to this intersection as well. At this intersection, signs will point to Rendezvous Way as the easiest way down. Rendezvous Way starts with a pitch that can be a bit steep for a green. It has several undulations which can kill speed, and can be hard to track across a couple of its intersections with these blues. Overall, it's not my favorite green, and in all honesty, I don't find it significantly easier than Tomahawk. Tomahawk is pretty much the only traditional big mountain green. It's mild, plenty wide, but also quite busy. I wouldn't recommend Tomahawk until after you can confidently ski all of the lower mountain greens. At the bottom of Tomahawk, you can keep left to Baby Powder, which is somewhat of just a road going around. I find it neither entertaining nor useful. On the skier's right side of Tomahawk, you have these 4 short blues. I believe they get rotating grooming, but they typically don't have any true moguls. If they do, that's a perfect place to start learning moguls. In the early season, there is a creek at the bottom of all 4 that you'll have to cross, so be careful with that. Now, this upper area above Rendezvous Way is fairly open without many defined runs. Quick Draw and Flintlock, while not groomed every night, both fall into the category of blue cruisers. To access the groomed part of Flintlock, you'll need to exit left and start down High Noon. Coming from Tomahawk Face, you'll have a mogul field standing between you and it. Quick Draw can typically be accessed from both sides, but it also has easier access from the High Noon side. Sunshine Lift Line, the area directly underneath the lift, starts as moguls but is typically groomed from about 2/3 of the way up to the bottom. Again, access this from uppermost High Noon. So, you've just heard about 3 fantastic blue cruisers that all start off as one, upper High Noon here. This area is extremely popular and gets quite busy, particularly on the skier's left side of the run. If not intending to ski one of the aforementioned 3 blues, definitely stick to the right side. Once past the initial pitch, people spread out across all of the runs and High Noon opens up a little bit more. From here on down, it is an absolutely signature cruiser and is a fantastic lap even for experienced guests. Off of high noon, fawn is on rotating grooming, but you can sometimes find a nice lower level mogul field here. Spike is a very wide, mild groomer, except for its very last pitch into the Sunshine Lift Maze. All throughout the Sunshine Pod is some really good lower level tree skiing, and there's lots of small, short patches of easy moguls. Both of these sets of terrain further amplify why Sunshine is both so popular and so deserving of said popularity. Now, the South Peak lift, as previously discussed, is a nice escape if Sunshine is busy. While it is quite slow, its relatively short length makes it bearable. At the top of South Peak, you'll be faced with a restaurant. This restaurant has some really good food, but because it is the closest lodge to the Sunshine Pod, it gets quite busy. When unloading the South Peak lift, if you want to access Spike, keep to the right of the building. For everything Broadway, go hard to your left for the South Peak flats. For lower high noon and daybreak, go straight ahead onto the cat track just to the left of the building. There are a few ski racks and a back entrance to the building on that track, but if those are full, there's a much bigger entrance with way more racks if you ski around to the right side of the building. Off of South Peak Flats, you have a variety of options. Broadway is a green road that doesn't get too busy and moves along quite well. Westside has a fairly consistent pitch and some big moguls. It's a great continuous cardio run if you're into that type of thing. Rolex starts off not terribly steep, just like Westside, but unlike the other run, Rolex then drops off pretty significantly. Rolex is much more popular than Westside, so that and its extra steepness means it typically has much worse snow than Westside. Lower High Noon is the main run going down this way. It's a groomer that is set down in a valley and is shaded for a lot of the day, meaning it can get quite icy. It also gets quite busy, particularly at the end of the day. Daybreak starts off as a road, then becomes a more traditional run for its last third. To access it, you'll want to keep as far skiers right as possible as you start down Lower High Noon. It's a weird side hill traverse to get to it, but I much prefer it to Lower High Noon. Now, this Sundown Express can get some solid lift lines as well, but the Elkhead Express tends not to get too bad of lines at all except for a few minutes at the end of the day when everyone leaves the Sunshine Pod. So if you hit that 11 a.m. rush at sundown and don't feel like waiting, just pop up Elkhead and head to a less popular area, perhaps Pony if you're an advanced skier or Thunderhead if you're lower level. The Elkhead runs themselves aren't the greatest, as they face into the sun almost all day, making them extremely icy. Moonlight is your standard blue groomer, and it's the only run I ski in this pod if I can help it. Spur Run is a green road that is hard to follow at the top of Rowell here, and is flat in this section after Huffman's rejoins. Huffman's and Rowell are two very short, semi-steep, icy blues. Sunnyside is one of the worst mogul runs in the resort, again due to the aforementioned poor snow conditions. Up at the top of the lift, Tower goes straight down the face, while Arc somewhat goes around as a road. Tower isn't all that bad. This Duster cat track is primarily a snowshoe trail, but you can also ski on it from Looker's right to Looker's left. Thus, if you're on 3 o'clock and want to torture yourself in a different way than waiting in the sundown lift line, you can skate all the way over to the junction of Velvet, Skyline, Rainbow Park Lane, and Moonlight. Just as with Tower and Arc, Skyline goes straight down the face while Velvet goes a little bit around. I actually prefer Velvet here as it's less busy, but in all honesty, the easiest method is to use Skyline if you're going to the Burgess Creek pod, and use Velvet if you're going to Moonlight. I'm not certain about this, but I'm guessing that Lights Out is a mogul run. It's a short connector to Sundown from the Sunset Trail, which we'll discuss in Part C. Let's move on to the Sundown Pod proper. This traverse run is exactly what it sounds like, getting you over to the Storm Peak pod. Closets and shadows are some of Steamboat's famed tree terrain. These massive areas seem to have absolutely perfect tree spacing and just the right pitch to keep it going. This is a great place to find some stashes, and due to how large these areas are, no two runs feel quite alike. At the bottom of these glades, you've got Dawn, a single-track traverse that moves along much better than does Duster. Contrary to the trail map, Dawn actually starts all the way over on the lift line and cuts across the entirety of the glades. Sundown Lift Line, Coose's Cruise, and 3 o'clock are all fantastic, steep, long mogul burners. This is the Mary Jane territory of Steamboat for those who get that reference. 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock aren't typically groomed every night. 1 gets groomed often enough it doesn't really develop moguls, while I've seen 2 both with very large moguls and fresh cord, so be sure to check the grooming report for that one. Twilight, contrary to Closets and Shadows, has more of a defined path, as the tree spacing gets much denser the further away from the center you vary. It is very accessible, and as a result, has some weird moguls in the trees action in certain spots. Well, that about does it for the Sunshine Peak side of the mountain. Now go check out parts C and D to learn about the remaining areas of the mountain. As always, please leave any questions down below. Thank you all so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.